Welcome back. A live look here in Duck Creek Village, Utah, the site of the latest battle in an ongoing feud between the states and the Biden administration over who should control the land. Utah fighting back against President Biden's administration's control of federal lands in the state. A similar situation we've seen in other western states. The state's Attorney General, Sean Reyes, says I was asked to file a lawsuit with the Supreme Court in order to attempt to assert control over the Federal Bureau of Land Management property taking up about 1/3 of Utah. The land includes national parks, as well as remote areas of the desert in the little trafficked western portion of the state. So who gets control? Who makes the decisions here? Wanted to ask our legal panel about it. Ron Chapman is a former U.S. Marine Corps attorney, and who should be making decisions when it comes to federal land? Ron, can you start off what we are considering here and why this case is newsworthy?
Well, it's newsworthy because this sets up kind of an epic battle between the state and the federal government, something always of interest to us and something that would likely be fast-tracked all the way to the Supreme Court. But in essence, Utah agreed to certain provisions in order to become a state, and that includes allowing the federal government to have control over the lands. Now they're filing suit to get it back, and I think some of the claims may be federal misuse of the land, as well as the Biden administration's new policies related to that. Now, I think it's going to be an uphill battle for the state because of those initial agreements when Utah became a state initially.
Oh, wow. So we're going to have to go back in time, look at what was in those agreements to see what that means for today and who calls the shots. So the Bureau of Land Management spokesperson Brian Hires says the agency is not going to comment on pending litigation. So we don't have exactly the argument right now of the federal government. But Ron, what could we anticipate the response be to even the AG's claims that we just want to have a say in what's going on in our backyard?
Well, certainly, I think that their response is going to be that the federal government has traditionally had control over these lands, that there was an agreement for control. But I absolutely agree with the concept that citizens in Utah should have control over their own lands, especially those that aren't specifically being used. You know, there's a principle in the law that when you don't use something and somebody else is occupying it, that you can take possession of that, especially if you've done nothing to improve it, improve the value of it, or use it publicly. And I think that's really where Utah's claim has its voice. And the federal government's going to have difficulty responding when their response is, well, we've engaged in conservation efforts, and that's about it. I think this is going to be a very interesting case. Some people, I think a Colorado professor recently said it's going to be dismissed pretty quickly. I don't agree. I think that there are some very good arguments that Utah is posing here.
Yeah, one of them being less federal government involvement. We want to call the shots. We live here. We'll be watching it. Ron and Wendy, thank you very much for coming on today.
Thank you
so much.